to the City of Des Moines Plan and Zoning Commission meeting, January 16th. These are our rules and procedures. The Plan and Zoning Commission is an advisory body to the City Council. The City Council will hold a public hearing and generally make a final decision on all matters before the Commission other than site plans or subdivision flats, unless denials or conditional approvals are appealed. Please contact the City Clerk or the Community Development staff for details on council hearings. Applicants tonight will then be given 10 minutes to present their request. Proponents and then opponents from the public are then allowed to speak in that order, which each speaker being allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. The applicant is then allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal. The hearing will then be closed and the commission will discuss and vote on the issue. All comments are to be germane to the item under consideration, and speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. The items listed in the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed or considered for and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report, unless an individual present or a member of the commission requests that that item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately under the public hearing agenda. The City of Des Moines is pleased to provide accommodations to individuals or groups with disabilities and encourages participation in city government. Assisted listening devices are available for meetings in this room. And to better serve you, when possible, notify the city at least 3 business days in advance at 283-4209 should special accommodations be required. Plan and Zoning Commission meetings are broadcast on Mediacom cable channel 7.1 or 7.2 for customers with that service. So at this time, there appears to be a quorum. Thank you, everyone. And is there a motion for the minutes of our December 19th meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor of approval of the December 19th Plan and Zoning Commission meeting, please raise your hand. Okay, are there any abstentions? Got it. And are there any no's? All right, seeing none. At this time, I'm going to go through the consent items first. We have several changes, and so we'll read through them. Consent item number 1 is a request from Jeff and Tanya Nicholson for the property located at 905 and 909 East 27th Street and 916 and 917 East 27th Court. The request is to determine whether or not to determine whether or not the requested rezoning is in conformance with the Plan Des Moines Creating Our Tomorrow plan, whether the amendment Plan Des Moines Creating Our City's Tomorrow's future land designation from low-density residential to community mixed use for property at 905 East 27th, and C, rezoning the property from N3C to MX mixed-use district to bring existing properties for use for small engine sales and service business into conformance with zoning regulations. So it is my understanding that this item will remain on consent is there anyone in the audience that wishes us to pull this item from consent to hear it? Seeing none, is there anyone on the commission that wishes us to pull this item to hear? Otherwise, it will be voted on with the staff recommendation. Okay, seeing none, on item number 1, that will remain on consent. Item number 2 is a request from Scott Dickerson for property located at 2411 Ingersoll Avenue.
2415.
Yes, you're right, 2415, sorry about that. And this is to determine whether the requested rezoning is in conformance with Plan Des Moines and to rezone property from mixed-use district to MX3 mixed-use district to allow tenant space in the building to be used for animal service and boarding, a pet daycare business. So it is my understanding that the applicant is requesting to remove the item from consent so that it could be heard at our March meeting.
Yeah, the applicant is requesting continuance. They were not able to set up their neighborhood meeting prior to tonight, so they wanted additional time to be able to get that set up and hold that prior to the commission. So they asked to continue it a month to the March 5th meeting.
Okay, and is the applicant present?
I'm not sure they're even here.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes us to keep this item on the consent? Seeing none, is there anyone on the commission that wishes to pull this item or hear the item? All right, is there a motion to?
Continue to March.
Thank you. All those in favor of moving item number 2 to our March 5th meeting, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, thank you. So that item will be removed from consent tonight and appear on our March agenda. Item number 3, which is request from QSL Development for review and approval of a preliminary plat, Woodbury, on property located in the vicinity of 3401 block of East 56th Street, to allow the property to be divided into 84 lots for one household development, 2 lots for multi-household development, and outlot stormwater management and/or open space. It is my understanding that, again, the applicant is requesting to remove this.
The staff has recommended,
The staff.
and the applicant's going to meet with us next week on some of the concerns that we raised about it.
Okay, is the applicant present?
I don't see anybody here from that.
All right, so if approved by the commission, this item will reappear on our February 6th
Yes, that's
agenda.
what we're recommending, February 6th.
I'll move.
Okay, so I don't see anyone here. Does anyone in the commission that has a? Okay, so Jan's moving that we move item number 3 to our February 6th agenda. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. So item number 4 is a request from M.D. Drake Multifamily for property located at 2530 University Avenue and 1157, 1159, and 1161 26th Street. The request is for vacation of adjoining north-south alley between 25th and 26th Street from University to a point 281 feet to the south, adjoining air rights in a 4-foot by 13-foot segment to the south side of University Avenue and a 2-foot by 28-foot segment to the east side of 26th Street, and adjoining subsurface rights in the south 2 feet of University Avenue and the east 4 feet of 26th Street. In addition, determining whether the requested rezoning is in conformance with Plan Des Moines, amending Plan Des Moines for future land use designation from low, medium density residential to neighborhood mixed use on the property on 1157 26th Street, and rezone property on from MX1 mixed use district to N5 neighborhood district to N5 to MX2 mixed-use district to allow for a 4-story mixed-use building with 136 household units and 6,000 square feet of ground floor retail office space. So unless there is anyone in the audience that wishes to hear this item tonight, it will remain on the consent agenda with the staff recommendation. Is there anyone on the commission that wishes us to pull this off consent? All right, seeing none. Consent items.
Madam Chair, there's one thing, item 10, unless there's somebody here to speak in opposition, staff would be
yes, that one.
okay with moving that to the consent if the commission wants to consider that.
All right, so Item number 10, which is a request from Lucky Gal 1 for property located at 3104 Southwest 9th. And the request is to determine whether or not the requested rezoning is in conformance with Plan Des Moines. And B, rezoning property from RX1 mixed use district to MX1 mixed use district to allow use of the building for an amusement arcade. Is there anyone in the audience that does wish this to remain on our public hearing item tonight? You'd like to hear it? Okay. So that one will remain on our public hearing. Okay? So the consent items are item number 1 and item number 4. Is there a motion? Greg?
Move consent.
Thank you. All those in favor of consent item tonight, please signify by raising your hand. All right. So now we're ready to consider the public hearing items that were listed for tonight. So once again, I'm going to read through these. Item number 7 is my understanding. This is a request from 301 Grand LC for an appeal of site plan RDG Planning and Design Remodel that was denied administratively for property located at 301 Grand Avenue to allow the waiver request for the street light fixture replacement with a black fixture placement type with banner, strings, pole, proper footing, and to include reinstallation of electronic parking directional sign on 3rd Street. It's my understanding that the applicant wishes to withdraw the item.
Yes, it has been withdrawn.
Right. So we can take that item off the public hearing tonight. If there was anybody here for item number 7, it has been withdrawn. Item number 9, I'm going to go back to 8. Item number 9 is a request from Newberry Living for property located at 3801, 3721, 3707, and 3705 Grand Avenue, and 3810 Ingersoll Avenue. The request is to determine whether the rezoning is in conformance with Plan Des Moines, whether rezoning the property from R4 multifamily residential district and MPC to a PUD district, and approval of the PUD conceptual plan 3801 Grand Avenue to allow development of a 4-story, 55-unit independent senior living apartment building in addition to an existing 4-story, 35-unit independent senior living apartment building and an existing 3-story, 55-unit assisted living apartment building and an existing 2-story, 5,720 square foot office building. So it's my understanding that the applicant wishes to continue this item to the February 6th meeting.
Yes, they requested that, and it will probably change a little bit. I think they're planning to reduce the area of the.
All right, and is the applicant present? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that, well, if we do continue, if the commission votes to continue this item, it will reappear on our February 6th agenda. So is there a motion to that effect? Yes.
I'll move to continue to February 6th.
Thank you, Dory. All those in favor of continuing item number 9 to our February 6th meeting, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, thank you. Now, item number 8 is a request from Hope Ministries Center for Women and Children for a request for property located on 3800 East Douglas Avenue. This is to determine whether or not the requested rezoning is in conformance with Plan Des Moines, whether to amend Plan Des Moines for future land use designation from public, semi-public to medium-density residential, rezone property from R161 Family Low Density Residential to PUD Development District, and approval of the PUD Development Plan, Hope Ministry Center for Women and Children, to allow the existing church to be converted to a 50-bed shelter for the homeless and 50-bed supervised group residence for only women and children. The proposed use would include classroom, office, and daycare space. So again, it's my understanding that the applicant is requesting that this item be removed from the agenda this evening to be heard by this commission at our February 6th meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, and the communication we received indicated the desire to get some information to neighbors that attended their neighborhood meeting.
Okay.
So that they had a chance to review that information before participating in the hearing. The other thing I did want to clarify is on the entire facility would be restricted only to women and children.
Yeah, that's
It
what
might
it
not be
says.
clear the way it reads, that all the beds would be for women and children only.
Okay, but I just want to, there might be people in the audience tonight that did not get the communication that the applicant requested to move the item.
Right.
And so what will happen if we move the item to our February 6th meeting? Anyone who's in attendance can come to that meeting and...
Certainly, it's that, so the way it works is by being here, knowing that the meeting is continued, that the chain of notice is carried to that February 6th.
Are you representing the applicant? Did you wish to add anything further?
I did want to add something to the commission, just so you're aware on the material.
Okay, no,
That-
it's nothing that we can act on tonight. It's just whether...
Continuing, I want to speak to the idea of continuance and
Okay.
then the notice that was given. I think you all have the packet of material that we submitted. Oh, my name and address, Chris Pose, 317 6th Avenue, Suite 300. We weren't able to get this material until Monday, and it was our feeling that the only way we had to communicate with the neighbor list, which is the city neighbor list that they gave us, was to mail this to the people within the 250 feet, and we also talked to the neighborhood organizations and the ward council person. We didn't want to proceed tonight, having just sent this material out on Monday, that people might have received until Tuesday, Wednesday, and you folks wouldn't have received till tonight. And so that's the reason for our request for deferral to your February 6th agenda. I wanted to make the commission aware that we did make efforts to notify the neighborhood through the neighborhood mailing list, and also we know there were other means that the neighbors were made aware of what was going on through either social media or through the ward council person who also knew this was going to be deferred. I thought that'd be relevant to you as you look at...
Thank you.
Because there are
Appreciate
some
that.
people here still to speak tonight, but I wanted you to know that we did make efforts to let them know we were continuing tonight.
Right, and that's why I'm trying to clarify to anyone who may not have received that notice that you requested a continuance for the very purpose of being able to speak again to neighborhoods before we act as a commission on the item.
Well, I don't know how much more speaking will be with the neighborhood. We're happy to talk to them at any time. We're not scheduling another meeting. We just felt that the information we had sent out here that you now have, being 12 pages in length, would be material that it's only fairness that they have more time to look at than us putting it in the mail on Monday. And that's the soonest that we could put it out.
But you're available to answer questions that the
Absolutely.
community has said about.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's the
Absolutely.
point, is the offer of continuance is so that there can be some interaction.
Yes, absolutely.
Madam Chair, are we supposed to have some information?
No, we
don't have it.
won't forward it. We'll, if it gets continued, we'll forward it to you for the next meeting. It's in the record from their request to continue. If you do hear it tonight, we'll let them present that information tonight.
Okay, so at this point, I'm asking the commission, what is your pleasure? The applicant, as you see, is requesting a continuance to February 6th.
It sounds like the applicant is trying to provide fair opportunity to everybody surrounding the property to have input, digest information, ask questions, and have them answered, which seems like a good thing and a reasonable basis for a continuance.
So is that a motion?
That would be a motion.
All those in favor of continuing item number 8 to our February 6th meeting, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. So thank you to anyone who is in attendance tonight that was going to speak. You are able, if you're able, please rejoin us on February 6th. Okay, so we are ready to,
No, they won't take it up. No. So they won't open the hearing until
February 6th.
They will consider this and open the hearing for people to speak on February 6th. The meetings will start at the same time, 6 o'clock in this same location.
If, would it be possible if they have questions that somebody from the staff can, You're the
someone
only
from
one,
staff.
okay.
So unless you want me to go and talk to them first and while you're waiting.
We'll be glad to talk to them if they want to talk to them.
I think they have questions about what's going to happen next.
Yes,
So-
so again, I'm going to repeat that. February 6th, which is the first Thursday in February, this will be taken up again for consideration, and the same process will be initiated by the Plan and Zoning Commission. So the meetings will begin at 6 o'clock as well. The way it works with items that get continued, they get taken up on the head of the agenda over items that come in that are new on the agenda.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, we're ready to go back to item number 5. This is the city-initiated public hearing regarding proposed amendments to the approved zoning ordinance in Chapter 134 of the City Code relating to lodging, short-term commercial rental uses, non-conforming uses, separation distance requirements. I might wait a minute.
So right now, the items that will be taken up
On
for the
item
rest
number
of the meeting will
5,
be 5,
6,
Eric, I think you need to get closer to the microphone because you can't hear.
Is it not working?
No, that's better.
Okay.
I don't think they can hear, and I think they want to hear.
Okay.
You want to repeat that again?
Yes, so the items for the remainder of the evening are to be considered are item 5, item 6,
and 10.
and item 10. So if you're not here for items 5, 6, or 10, you're welcome to leave, or you're welcome to stay and participate in a civic process.
I have item 6 withdrawn.
No, 7.
7.
7, okay, thank you.
Give you a minute here. All right. So is everybody ready for item number 5?
So item 5 is has a few layers to it. These are not even parallel anymore, but quick follow-up modifications to the new zoning ordinance. In particular tonight, you have consideration of items for short-term rental, modifications to the adopted regulations, and then changes to legal nonconforming standards in the zoning ordinance portion as they relate to single 1 and 2 family dwellings. And that the intent there is that they are correlative to the same provisions that you see in Chapter 135 already. And then the last thing would be 5 map modifications to restore the PUD boundaries that were modified to flood zoning inadvertently. So those are on to clean that up. And as far as I know, there's not any issues or questions about it. And then the 150-foot separation provision that relates to the sale of alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer sales as related to the, just the MX. DX1, DX2, MX1, MX2, and DXR. So in our chart that we use, or the matrix that we use for the provisions for sale of alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer, as they relate to those zoning districts, they're looking to add a provision for separation of bars from churches, schools, parks, registered daycares. So those are the matters. Sue Ann Donovan's here to give more detail on the short-term rental modifications. We expect there's people here to weigh in on that as part of the hearing, so I'll let her get up here and cover that.
Commission, I'm Sue Ann Donovan, the Neighborhood Inspection Zoning Administrator, and I've been working on the short-term rental regulations. We passed the short-term rental regulations with some restrictions on how long an owner must reside in the property before they could rent it. So there was a cap, they had to live there for 170 days out of a year in order to then rent out the short-term rental for the remainder of the year. The industry felt like that was too onerous, and so we had public meetings, discussed it, and came up with some amendments and took that back to them. So basically what this does is it frees up the unit to be rented 365 days a year, so it's full-time, but they have to get a Board of Adjustment approval, and they have to get a rental certificate. We also tweaked a little bit the numbers and percentages of units allowed in multifamily dwellings. It was a little confusing the way it was written. So any multifamily duplex or above can have one short-term rental in it. And then after that, it becomes a 10%. So after 9 units, you start going to 10% and rounding down to 0. So that gives some flexibility, but it also puts a cap on the number of rental units in multifamily units. The feeling is that will help not drive up the rent prices and kind of have a cap so that rents don't get out of control in our multifamily dwellings. So that's the real basics of it, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hi, so if I understand it right, and maybe I know my own answer here, so it's up to, say it's a condominium building. So you're saying it's up to the condo association or whatever to figure out who that one unit is, or, well, it's up to them to figure that out, right?
It's up to them to figure it out.
Pretty onerous.
Yep.
Okay.
Or the first one that comes to us is going to get it in that building.
So how would it play out if, say, someone wants it, if they want to switch it? You know, you follow what I'm saying? So one person wants to do their unit in whatever, January, and someone wants to do their unit later. And so is there a time frame, I guess what I'm asking? If someone comes to you and says, I'd like the certificate for a month or something.
They would go to the Board of Adjustment and get the use permit, and it would just run with that unit. I don't enter.
So there'd be no duration of time to it? That person could just hold on to it forever?
Correct.
Oh, so first come, first serve.
That is correct.
Got it.
They could, if they wanted more in the building, they could go to the board and seek a variance.
Okay.
So there is a safety valve that if the building thinks that they can house more and the board thinks it's okay, that they could increase that number.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So at this time, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in favor of the ordinance? Seeing none, is there in favor? As revised. Okay. If you step forward and give your name and address.
Danielle Rocker. I live at 714 53rd in Des Moines. I just wanted to speak to, I've been at many of the planning sessions. I do have an Airbnb. We actually started one just last May after buying a property from a tax exchange, and it was in the Drake neighborhood, and we thought, let's try this till we get to a better rental timing. And we have really, really appreciated the opportunities and have found it actually better than a long-term rental in terms of the people that we have staying, the types of rental, the longevity, and it's just been a lot better situation for us to have those types of renters there. I just wanted to thank the council for all the work that they've done. I think the new adjustments really help balance, where by going to the Board of Adjustment, you can still have oversight into making sure that it doesn't get out of control, but yet allows the flexibility for Des Moines to have growth. We've seen a lot of families, because we have a house. Families want to travel. When I travel, I like to stay in an Airbnb or somewhere where I can have more space to spread out. And I definitely think that appeals to Des Moines. We get a lot of families. Des Moines is not necessarily a single bachelor visitor center, so I think that's definitely appealing to more of the travel opportunities in Des Moines.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak in favor of the revised ordinance?
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Brad Padre. I live at 4407 Southeast 6th Street in Des Moines, Iowa. I've been given consent by several people in the area to speak on their behalf who weren't able to make it here. Jared Johnson, Thomas Kerbel, Tobias Cross, Becky Hugh, and Elma Sinanovich. All of these people are also owners who've been present at a lot of different city council meetings. When I first came to Des Moines, I tried to rehabilitate a house near the Drake neighborhood. I had monthly renters. One of them burned it down. I also owned another house that was vandalized. My experience becoming a monthly landlord was very, very challenging. So I decided to rehab another house and attempted to put it on Airbnb. It was an area where the cost of rehabilitating this house would never have worked without it. This is a very important thing I want to kind of drive home, is that there are certain members of the City Council who believe that Airbnb owners like myself are actually taking homes away from people who are willing to buy the houses, and that's completely untrue. I even gave a city councilman a list of 10 properties that I put bids on, all of them under market value. I did not get 6 of them, and 4 I bought at a much cheaper price. There's even a house right now at 2140 Southeast 6th Street. The man cannot sell his property. No one is willing to give him the amount of money that it'll take to buy it, because he has foundation issues and he has furnace issues, and every renter knows, every landlord knows, you're not going to get the right amount of money. This is a $155,000 house that needs 40 grand to work, which means you should rent it for $1,900. No one is going to get this on this block, so the house has been sitting on for 7 months. I had him write a letter to the city council once these new regulations went into play, that might have played some role in why we're speaking today. This letter said, hey, everyone's not paying me for my house. I'm going to have to do a short sale. But Mr. Brad Padre wants to buy it. I want to fix the foundation. I want to fix the furnace. And the only way I'm going to pay for this investment is, unfortunately, through the use of Airbnb. Now, I have had both monthly and short-term rentals, and I've found that, for better or for worse, it seemed like my luck with the monthlies was absolutely terrible. The renters would not keep up the property, and because I was making so little money on them, I had to go myself to do the repairs. I would clean up the basements, I would change the sink myself. It was not fun. Airbnb, because of the tourism industry, I'm able to give people jobs. We make so much more off it that there's actually 2 people in this audience right now whose full-time job is to work on Airbnbs and do the maintenance and do the hosting. The lawns are kept up. The houses are kept cleaner. I don't need to worry about any crazy nonsense, because if someone comes in and treats my property poorly, I can rate them badly on the website and potentially get them banned. It is much more difficult to evict a long-term tenant. There are pros and cons to this. I'm not going to say it's all, roses and diamonds here. It's still work. But I believe that the cons are vastly outweighed by the pros. I believe that the city should regulate it and should, act on folks who, give the platform a bad name. And through these amendments, through these changes, I believe that Sue Ann Donovan and the rest of the city, neighborhood commissions, they'll be able to shut down anyone who's not playing by the rules. That's it.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in favor of the revised ordinance? All right, is there anyone who has concerns or objections to the revisions? Please step forward, sir, and state your name and address.
Name is David Lund, 641 46th Street. I'm a little conflicted on am I for it or against it. I've read through the revised, and I understand the city is trying to get a handle on this, trying to control it, and that's a good thing. Let me describe my situation. Live on the 600 block of 46th Street, old homes, single family, owner occupied for the most part, a couple of rentals. And I suddenly find myself with a hotel running next door right outside my window. And the person who's doing it has lied to neighbors and has, taken an unfinished basement and turned it into a luxury hotel suite and is renting out rooms upstairs on top of that.
Sir, can you speak closer to the mic? I think we're getting some feedback from outside.
And
Thank you.
my primary concern is, having watched what's been going on so far, how will this individual be forced into compliance? Building codes, fire codes, city permits, all of that, because as far as I'm concerned, there's no scruples there right now, so why should that change? And that's a concern of mine. I know that may not be this committee's direct responsibility, but if I could shut her down tomorrow, I would do it. I got strange people going up and down the driveway right outside my window at all times of the day and night. I got my doorbell ringing in the night, and we're just fed up with it. We just hate it, and I'd like it gone. That said, I understand what you've done with the regulations, and you are trying to get a handle on it, and for that I appreciate it. But that's my comments.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else with questions or concerns?
I'm Carly Hamilton at 678 45th Street. There are 3 short-term rentals operating just a few blocks from my home. Together, they can accommodate 20 renters coming and going all year long. Residential neighborhoods are the heart of the city. They are important places for people who live in them. Their ambiance and energy can attract people who want to live and work in Des Moines. Housing for singles and families needs to be available in these neighborhoods. And the neighborhoods need to be safeguarded from possible predators. And the short-term and rental industry can be predatory, especially if Des Moines has weak zoning regarding them. There are companies that are solely in the business of looking for cities who have weak or no ordinances regarding short-term rentals. And these companies advise investors where to buy houses that can be turned into investments. This turns our neighborhoods into commercial zones that can be overrun with these hotels, which is what this rental business is, a hotel, and all the harm that comes with them. The proposals, I feel, are extremely weak. There is no requirement for an owner to actually live on the property. There is no requirement for them to even live in the state. I think they should at least be required to reside in Polk County or in a contiguous county. Off-street parking should be required by the resident, the short-term rental. This is a money-making business, and the owners need to take responsibility by providing parking on the rental site. Allowing the renters to park on the street in a neighborhood creates many problems for the residents. And these problems occur each time a new group of renters arrives. It's like Groundhog Day, the movie. Renters park in a no parking zone, which blocks visibility at an intersection. It's a safety issue. Police are not very responsive to requests to ticket the violators, which means the same cars park there again and again until a new group arrives and does the same thing. Renters park in front of our properties, causing problems with garbage pickup and city snow removal. We have limited access to our own properties. Our guests have nowhere to park when they visit us. Any service such as appliance delivery or a tree trimming or a repair service person, it's made very difficult for them to get to our house and park in front of it because of the excess of renters' vehicles parked on our streets. There needs to be a limit of how many short-term rentals and how many people they can accommodate are allowed in a certain block area. There's a 10% cap on the number of units that can be in a condo or apartment building. Why not the same consideration for our neighborhoods? There needs to be a regulation about how close these rentals can be to each other. Right now, there's no mention of this. And so I could wind up with entire houses full of renters, short-term, all around me, with no owner required to live there. And believe me, this does affect property values. I have not met anyone who says, oh boy, I live next to an Airbnb, or great, I want to buy a house right next to one that has people arriving late at night over and over, ringing my doorbell because they think my house is the rental, leaving bags of garbage on the curb, causing the bags to break open, and garbage blow across the front yard of my new home. Also, 85 decibels, which is allowable in this, is too loud. This is residential. Please lower it. The CDC lists any noise over 70 can cause hearing damage. I want to know how the city is going to enforce these rules. Is there a larger budget for police, public works, and the zoning department so they can handle the complaints and make sure people are compliant? How can the zoning board realistically say that these businesses won't affect the general welfare of a neighborhood's permanent residences? It does affect us, and many times adversely. Des Moines needs its neighborhoods to remain good places to live, and the neighborhoods need Des Moines' fullest protection. Thank you.
Thank you. And would you be so kind as to leave your letter for record?
Sure.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? You're welcome.
Good evening. My name's Diane Graham. I live at 635 46th Street in Des Moines. And I'm here first to commend you for stepping up to regulate short-term rentals in the city. I know it's a tough subject. I know there's a lot of complexity, but I think this is really important for residents like me. I'm really pleased that, as I understand it, under this ordinance, from here on, when somebody wants to open a short-term rental business on their property, they have to get the permit, and we, as property owners nearby, would be notified. That's light years better than discovering through increased traffic and strange people walking back and forth to the house next door to you that suddenly you find out there's an Airbnb on your block. So thank you for that. But like others here, I don't want you to stop here. I still think there need to be tougher standards for short-term rentals, especially whole house rentals in residential neighborhoods. This zoning ordinance does establish caps for the percentage for a multi-unit building that can convert to short-term rentals. There should be some sort of density cap also for residential neighborhoods as short-term home rentals spread. That's a critical flaw right now that I see. And I'm here to say that when a home in your neighborhood becomes a short-term rental property, it's a game changer. There's more traffic. There's more comings and goings. You heard the stories about the doorbells. I've had people roll up their suitcase in my driveway because they're in the wrong house. It just changes the fabric of the neighborhood. So short-term whole house rentals present unique issues that I think deserve unique solutions. So I would like you to look again at what you did with multi-unit situations. So when you think about the fact that you not only limited the number that can go in there, you're talking about buildings in those cases where there is probably more oversight day to day about what's happening in those buildings. Odds are there's a building manager on site, or perhaps even a receptionist in some buildings, maybe even a night security person. And there can be restrictions, as one of your members was asking about. You can write them into the condominium covenants or into the lease agreements. But when an entire house in a neighborhood suddenly goes from owner-occupied to short-term rental like Airbnb, there's no one on site taking responsibilities. And I think the zoning provisions that you have before you right now rely way too heavily on taking action after the fact, after the neighbors complain. We buy our homes in Des Moines because we love the wonderful residential areas. We get to know our neighbors. We have block parties. We look out for each other. Short-term, out-of-town renters blow a hole in all of that. They do not become our neighbors. So the time to look at a more comprehensive short-term rental policy for residential neighborhoods is now, not after the problems get worse. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And do you also have a letter you'd like to submit for record? I couldn't tell if you had something you wanted to read. Thank you. Yep. What's going to happen is we're going to have a chance for the staff to respond to the questions, in case that's what you wanted to know. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak, has concerns or questions about the ordinance? Please step forward.
So I think a lot of this comes down to the hosts, right? So, Thomas Kerbel. I think a lot of this comes
And your
down.
address, sir, please.
I am currently located in West Des Moines, but I'm.
That's okay.
Okay.
We just need an address.
Yeah. All right. So 6630 Cody Drive, West Des Moines. A lot of the concerns here comes down to the host. So there's no doubt that the hosts need to be held responsible for what's going on. So it needs to be a professional thing. This can't just be random people hosting these Airbnbs. Like every host needs to be held responsible for what they're hosting. You can't just wing it, right? So every host needs to be held responsible. It needs to be a very professional thing. So not every random person should just host their house or their apartment. And I think that's the problem here, is that hosts need to be held responsible. So if there's going to be regulations on this, I think that each host should be held responsible for each thing. So as far as decibel levels, noise units can be put in each unit, and hosts can be alerted to their phone when a certain decibel hits a certain level. Hosts can be alerted to that so that those guests can be removed from the property if they're too loud. That's a very simple thing. You simply put the decibel unit in your unit or your house, and if it gets too loud, you're alerted and you can remove the guests from the unit. It's a very simple solution. I do agree that there are some hosts that just aren't doing it professionally, and those hosts should not be allowed to do that, and I agree with that. But they need to be held responsible for that. But overall, I think it's a positive thing. But there's definitely concerns I see from the people worried about noise and garbage and stuff like that. But it comes down to the host, honestly. So if the host isn't being professional, then obviously it's not something that's going to work. So the hosts that take it seriously, it's a very positive thing. I, as a host, have brought a lot of people from the area, and it's been overall just very positive for me. So I just wanted to express that there are ways to deal with noise levels and things concerning that as far as that goes. So that's basically it overall. I just wanted to express that it does come down to the host and the professionalism of the host. If you're just going to randomly post your thing on Airbnb, just wing it, there's going to be problems, you know? But if you're taking it professionally and you post it and you're professionally running and managing your property and you're there to address the issues, there's not going to be problems. But yes, I agree. If you're winging it and you just throw it up there, I heard Airbnbs, you can just throw your thing on there and get some money, there's going to be problems because you're not taking it professionally. So if there's ways to separate professional hosts from hosts that are just winging it, throwing it up there, trying to make some money, there's something there with that. So if we can separate hosts that are doing it professionally and people that are just winging it and not paying attention to what's going on with the property, there's obviously going to be problems, which I'm sure is what some of these people have experienced. Hosts that have just thrown their properties up on Airbnb and not monitored it. There's been issues where they didn't know there was noise complaints and they just winged it, and then you have your neighbors complaining and nobody knows about it. But if you're a good human being and a professional host, and maybe you go to your neighbor and say, hey, I'm an Airbnb host, I wanted to let you know this. Please, here's my information. Please contact me if you have any issues. We have a noise decibel unit in all of our units, so if it reaches a certain level, we're notified, and we can come in and remove the guest, because it's in our rule book that if you hit a certain decibel level, you can be removed from the unit. It comes down to the host. It really comes down to the host. And these hosts need to be professional. And if they're not professional, if they're just winging it, there's going to be problems. But if you take it professionally and you're there for your property and make sure that it's run properly and there's not too much noise, this can be a great thing for Des Moines. I certainly think it's a great thing for Des Moines. A lot of travelers here, just like hotels. It gives them a place to...
Your time is
Okay,
run out.
thank you. I just wanted to express that. There's options for decibel levels, and that's it. So thank you.
I think we got the point. Is there anyone, would you like to? Yes, come on forward, please.
My name is Vianne Higgins. I live at 662 45th Street in Des Moines. Now, we've heard from different people who have an Airbnb next to them, who are, experiencing that kind of thing. The thing is, there's a difference between a short-term rental and a long-term rental. A short-term rental is like a party every night. No one there is responsible unless there's a responsible person on site. We're talking about with a hotel. Yeah, there's somebody there. With a longer term rental, there's someone that you can say, hey, I need the space right here because somebody's coming to work on my house. Or I need this right here because this is happening. There is none of that with a short-term rental. There is nothing that someone is saying responsibility there. Unless there's, the thing of Airbnbs is you think that there's someone renting out their house and they're there. That I have no issues with. The thing that I have issues with is people buying up these properties and saying, oh yes, it's a wonder for us because we're the landlords and we can charge however much we want. But that does not take into effect the impact on the people who are around them. Like I said, it's the difference between a party every night and then somebody who you can say, oh, yes, here's where the trash is. Here's where we can help each other. Here's where we can do this together. I have no problems with short-term rentals where there are people there responsible. If they're not there, it's more like a hotel with nobody there, with no regulations, and more like having a frat house next door, but at least with a frat house, there is somebody there who's like a house mother or whoever who can, see that things are okay. So to me, this is like having a frat house, but with nobody there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Please step forward. And are you speaking against the ordinance? You have questions or concerns?
She'll be speaking for the ordinance.
Okay, let me finish with anyone else who wishes to speak against the ordinance. All right, come on, you can come up now and sing that.
I manage Airbnb properties. Sure. Yeah, my name is Jennifer Bacom, and I manage properties at 400 Walnut. It's the Kirkwood Apartments. I just want to say that this has been a positive experience. Rarely ever do we get people coming through with parties. There are always families, couples coming through to go to concerts, people coming in town to see their families. It's really a unique business, and the thing is for us, it's not about just making money. It's about showing people our community. And I'm really passionate about it because I see what it brings to Des Moines. I love Des Moines, and I see the things that it brings to us, and like people passing through and they'll be like, Des Moines is great. I had no idea. Thanks for recommending that restaurant. And so that's all I want to say is that it's positive, and I really hope you guys don't shut it down. So,
thank you. So at this time, if the staff, I guess, wishes to come and maybe answer some of the concerns that were raised. to the best of your ability.
Good evening, Commissioners. I just wanted to clarify one thing that was stated. I don't think it was intended to be inaccurate, but I just wanted to make it clear. There was no prior legal use of Airbnbs or short-term rentals under the prior code, and so therefore there is no non-conforming use under the new code. Anyone who has operated an Airbnb either going forward under the new code or under the prior code is operating it illegally at this point and needs to come in and request a conditional use permit from the Board of Adjustment. That would be whether this amendment is approved or whether not, whether the code as written goes forward. So I heard someone say that in the future, neighbors will have the opportunity to comment on this. That should be true for existing ones as well, because again, if they continue to operate without going to the Board of Adjustment for a conditional use permit, they are operating illegally. I just wanted to make that clear. Also, for everyone who has spoken, both in favor and against in the audience, I wanted to and for the Commission's benefit, I wanted to just give the proposed schedule as we know it now. So on January 27th, the resolution will go to council unless something different happens tonight, your recommendation will go to council to set the hearing, and then that hearing should be scheduled for February 10th. Again, that's subject to change if we're directed by the city manager or by the city council, but that is the planned public hearing would be on February 10th at City Hall in front of the city council. Do you have any questions?
And the public hearing is similar to what we're doing tonight.
Right.
Where the public can come and express the issues and the concerns they have before the council.
Right. Do you have any questions of me regarding the ordinance text?
I heard what you said, and I just want to make sure for those neighbors who spoke about the problems you've already encountered, what you're saying is that wasn't an Airbnb, that was illegal. Correct?
Well, they may have been operating under Airbnb or a different short-term rental, but illegally. So they have no zoning rights. So it's not if another neighbor comes in to do it, then they have to go to the Board of Adjustment. That currently operating business also has to go to the Board of Adjustment.
So neighbors who are complaining about this could
and probably should come to the Board
should.
of Adjustment meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, who do they go to if they have the complaint? Who do they file the complaint with?
The zoning enforcement officer. Or they could contact anybody in the community development department who could get them to the zoning enforcement, but neighborhood inspections is the right place to start.
Anyone?
Go ahead.
One of two things. The path is zoning board of adjustment and occupancy permit. Two things happening here?
Right, so they have to be in the correct zoning district, first of all. And then they would go to the Board of Adjustment to request a conditional use permit. And they would also have to pay hotel motel tax and get a rental certificate through the city and do a handful of other things that are set forth in the ordinance.
And come under Sue Ann's domain.
Right, so any conditional use permit issued, and this isn't at the discretion of the board, this is required by ordinance. And again, this is with or without the amendment. Any issued is subject to reconsideration by the board because of violation of a condition.
So we should see, for those Airbnb owners and enthusiasts, a rush to the zoning board of adjustment to bring them into compliance. Otherwise, they'll be shut down by the city.
Well, I think there would definitely be some zoning ramifications.
Right.
And enforcement.
And ramifications include fines, what?
Well, I would let Sue answer that, but ultimately it would lead to litigation in worst case scenario. So.
And then Carolyn, sorry.
Okay, so I just wondered what the response or the reaction from people who own multi-unit, like apartment buildings. Because essentially, if I am a landlord, I have a city inspector come in, I have regulations that I have to follow to host individuals for a month, 2 years. So I'm trying to figure out how we weigh these rules of just having a manager available in the city versus all the regulations that our multifamily people have to go through. And so I didn't know if you'd heard from any of those landlords.
I have not. I would defer to Sue on that as well, and she can speak to that. Again, anyone who is lawfully operating a short-term rental, well, anyone who is operating a short-term rental, period, and they should be doing so lawfully, through a conditional use permit, would also have to get a rental certificate. So that would then be treated similar to...
They're essentially applying for a rental certificate.
Yes.
And they have all those...
Separately
all of those
through,
things that they
through
have
Chapter
to,
60 of our code, yep.
which is not listed here.
There is a requirement stated in there that they have to comply with the rental code and that they have to get the rental certificate and pay hotel motel tax.
Okay.
But regarding response...
So that's a difference, is the hotel motel tax.
Yeah. That is in there currently, so it will continue on through the amendment. If the amendment is passed, it will continue to be there. If not, it's already there. Regarding response, that is something that I would defer to Sue. I'm not aware of that, so. Okay, thank you.
Did you need her or Sue?
Oh, I have a question, please. Maybe Sue Ann can answer to.
Yeah.
One of the concerns was the owner occupancy business as far as the Airbnbs is concerned. Another of the concerns was the potential for a density of these in neighborhoods. I understand that, now or even before, the idea was to go to Zoning Board of Adjustment to get a permit to open this kind of a facility. But now with this deleted business in the red on item number 10, for example, what regulations does the Zoning Board of Adjustment have in terms of evaluating density?
They will not be evaluating density. They will be evaluating whether a particular property should be allowed to be a short-term rental. They will look at crowding, parking, and a number of other issues and how it would affect the neighborhood.
So they don't have a regulation actually that they can use as a tool to address the problems that several people have raised?
Well, actually, the board could take those into consideration and deny that application. They could take into consideration neighbors' concerns on density and weigh that maybe there is too much density in that neighborhood and we don't want to allow this one. So that would be something that could be brought to the board's attention when they're evaluating whether or not that permit should be issued.
Thank you.
Just before other questions, I just wanted to kind of answer some of the concerns that were raised by the people that came up and spoke. There was a mention of 85 decibels. That is not allowed in a residential district. It's 65 decibels. So I'm not sure. That's in the noise control ordinance, not in the short-term rental. The other thing...
Is that 85?
65.
No, I'm just messing with.
Oh, it's
The other thing they talked about was no oversight of the unit if somebody lives out of state or out of county. The ordinance does require them to give us a management agent, a local management agent's name and phone number, and provide that to neighbors adjacent to the property and post it on the property. And that also would be available if somebody had a question on who the agent was through the city.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that they're required to do is post information in the units as to when garbage pickup is, snow removal ordinances, other relevant ordinances, so that the tenants would know what their responsibilities are under the various ordinances while they occupy the structure. At this point, we're complaint-based on how we find out if someone is running a short-term rental. I think it will stay that way, although there are companies that are now coming out of the woodwork saying that they would help us manage finding the illegal short-term rentals, so we'll have to see how that goes in the future. But I'm just trying to touch some of the concerns that are contained in the ordinance that might help some of those problems.
So the people who spoke and live on that one street or nearby, really what they should do is complain,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
To
NID. Your board. It will get to me. And what the complaint process is, just to kind of go through that, we would investigate, and that I'm not going to give you all of my secrets, but we'd investigate, determine that it is a valid complaint and it is being used as a short-term rental, issue a notice of violation. At that point, they would have the right to come in, go to the Board of Adjustment, and seek the permit, at which time the neighbors will get, within 250 feet, get notified. There'll be an open public hearing that they can come and speak their concerns. It's up to the board to issue the permit. They would be required to get the rental certificate. If at some point they violate the terms and conditions of the board's order, we could take it back in and have it reconsidered.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. All right, I think at this time I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Commission,
There was
let me read that.
someone raised, Madam Chair, someone raised her hand.
Okay, the public hearing is closed. Okay? And, well, I was going to say, they, I think, tried to address all the questions that were raised.
I was going to comment on one more thing that I think was raised, but I can't.
Right, yeah, thank you, though. So the staff recommendation is as follows. Basically, that the staff recommend that the commission find the proposed amendment, zoning ordinance, and zoning map are in conformance with Plan Des Moines, and that the staff recommends approval of the proposed amendments to the approved zoning ordinance and the approved zoning map. So that would be the recently approved. Yeah, it's a little dicey there, but we're talking about what was recently approved. These are amendments to the recently approved ordinance and map, correct? All right. So, Commission, what is your pleasure?
Where are we? Here we gotta do this.
Just as a comment, the question about multifamily didn't seem to generate much opposition. That seems to have been covered pretty well. But when it comes to the short-term rental for a single-family dwelling, there seems to be questions. And since this is the first time we're regulating these, it seems that this is the time to do a thorough job rather than watering it down, which with the removal of the red language seems to have done.
So are you offering a motion?
Greg, go ahead.
No, because I moved staff, so you're first. So if you don't want to move staff, do it your way.
I didn't hear you.
If you're not going to move staff, you better speak first.
This is a comment to engender discussion.
Well, then I'll move staff.
All right, so all those in favor of the staff recommendations as read, please signify by raising your hand.
Can I say something
Yeah, I
first?
think you should, yeah.
I think a lot of work has been done to try and find a common ground. A lot of work has been done to try and give enough control to the city to avoid neighborhood problems like we've heard on 46th and 45th Street. And it's never going to be perfect. And there's always going to be litigation. And there are always going to be violators. And Sue Ann has job security, no question. But I think this is a really good proposal. So I'm with Greg on moving staff. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay.
In the midst of your vote.
Well, can I just say something? Sure. Well, and I think it's interesting to, I just wanted to emphasize again that what you thought were Airbnb were illegal. They weren't. So this is a way of really trying to put things in order and make sure that things do run better. So.
Okay, but I'm still trying to understand if I can have an Airbnb that I rent all year long, why is that any different than owning an apartment building? Why do they not have the regulations the same? Or a rental?
I'm not seeing that it is effectively different. You have to, you're under her jurisdiction. You have
So Sue Ann, you're saying that the regulations that owning a house and renting it out long-term or short-term, like month to month, is the same exact thing that the Airbnb has to go through. So they have city inspectors that are going to go into their homes.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Good, we settled that.
Thank you.
All right. So anyone need me to read the recommend? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
Now I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Any opposed? All right. And I think that was, or were there any abstentions? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for those who came tonight. And once again, the council will have this public hearing. Did you say in March? Is it in March? Or is it before that?
Correct.
The hearing of the
would be set for February 10th.
February 10th. Okay, so the individuals who
Yeah,
can go-
February 10th would be the date that the hearing would be set for.
Okay, thank you.
And that hearings begin at 5 o'clock in the City Hall council chambers.
That's a huge.
Thank you very much. We're now, I think we'll have another minute to let people exit, and then we'll be ready for item number.
If I could ask everybody to take discussions out into the hallway, please.
Challenge is that.
So we,
I think maybe there's too many.
I think we're ready for item number 10, right? Item number 10? Six, okay. Yeah.
That's the point, the point I was making.
Thank you, because I'm all over the place tonight.
I had to circle the ones that
Thank you. So we have 6 and 10.
case by case. And at least now people.
Okay.
At least they know, 'cause that's true.
Got another engagement. I don't know who would want to leave us, but.
Right, well, yeah, there were a couple of those.
Greg does. All right, so at this time, we're ready for item number 6.
Yes.
Item number 6 is a request from 2701 Ingersoll for review and approval of a site plan milling retail center under design guidelines for MPC districts on property located at 2701 Ingersoll. No, that was 7. That was withdrawn.
Okay, all right, so.
Got it?
Yep, got it.
6 is still on. I lost my, to allow development of the property for a 5,850 square foot commercial center.
This is cool.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the commission. This is the property at 2701, hence the name of the ownership group as well. It's currently the, I believe, Star gas station. So I'll show you a few photos here of the property. As you going west down Ingersoll, you can see 801
Yeah.
brand in the background. The property is this, you can see the fueling canopy and the gas station, the floor covering business to the west, and then a commercial strip, commercial center just to the east of it as well. And then as you go down, this is looking at it towards the northwest from Ingersoll. This is looking at the back area of the existing gas station building. You can see the fence that was put up by Public Works a number of years ago for a transition buffer that was for the benefit of neighbors that live on Linden, which is the residential street immediately to the north. This is kind of looking at on the west side of the property towards Linden, and the floor covering business to the west. The property line between those two properties is right here. Sorry. So you can't really, it's invisible of course, but it exists. I'm not going to get into too much depth here. I'll let the designer present their project. So they've gone through the process of site review. We've asked them to do a lot of things, include analyzing traffic patterns, cross-access needs, etc. So They've submitted a dimension plan. I think it's going to zoom in here. It's the building footprint. I should mention that this was filed when the zoning effective was NPC, so this is being reviewed under the MPC design guidelines. We're still in that little kind of in-between period where some of these things are going to be reviewed under the old ordinance, some of them under the new. While there wasn't an initial proposal for multi-story development with mixed use, this has become a one-story type development at this point. I'm just going to look for that. And they are providing the Ingersoll streetscape as well. If I can get a picture for you. Of note, and you'll see it in the conditions that we're recommending, we are looking for more of a soft transition here with the neighborhood, a better buffer, so to speak, with more plantings. We don't think what was presented was adequate for the needs to protect the neighborhood to the north, so we are asking for that. The other kind of big item, I think, is how is this being managed here? While we would love for the property owners to work together and have a cross-access arrangement, if that's not going to occur, then we would want to ensure that there was a curbed area in here that would prevent traffic movement between the two properties. So that would limit this to a one drive entrance as well. The other thing is, so in the conditions, you're going to see a number of things that are kind of standard, like rooftop mechanicals, making sure they have the proper trash receptacle enclosures. But really the two kind of big things are kind of beefing up that landscaping plan along the north edge to the satisfaction of the planning administrator. Forgot to show you the rendering of the plan. The elevations are also in your packet, but this is kind of how this would look. One of the things we do want to make sure is that the opacity of the windows is sufficient for there to see that there's interaction between the activity inside and the street, which this is being placed right on the street. So we don't want this to be sealed off. It needs to interact with the. So we do want to take a look at a reduced tinting of the windows to make sure in our new ordinance there is requirements that would speak to those factors. I'm not going to go through all of these, but they're pretty standard with regard to things like site lighting, rooftop mechanical, how the bearing of service lines to the new building. And then, of course, the big thing being that physical barrier, which we were not able to get something resolved to work for both property owners. So.
Is that number 4, Eric? Is that what you're talking about?
Number
or
12, yeah.
So that's the hang-up?
Well, I think that's going to be an issue potentially. I think that's again, if we had cooperation between the two property owners, I think we would see a different configuration. But.
Right, but what I was getting at is usually when you have a list of conditions, you can tell us which ones city staff and the applicant are not really agreeing on.
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure the applicant disagrees necessarily. I'm just saying you might hear issues from maybe not agreeable to the surrounding property owners.
Okay.
Eric, why does staff want number 12?
Because I think we'll have encroachment problems with both directions, honestly. I think it will result in, a circulation pattern that would be blocked. So at this point, by removing the connection, we don't have trucks attempting to use one site that are trying to access another site, as an example. Which, again, when they cooperate, it's ideal. So, ideal, that would be the better scenario.
Okay.
Any other questions for Eric?
I'm going to show you. I don't believe we didn't get any comment cards. nobody came in to look at the plan and provide comments. One thing I should point out is I know there was some concerns about whether they engage the neighborhood or not. We always encourage developers to engage the neighborhood associations that they're next to with their projects. That doesn't always happen. It's not a requirement for site plan review, but so I just wanted to point that out.
I have a sense nobody's going to be too upset if the Star Station disappears. You don't have to comment.
Yeah, that could well be. I think any, redevelopment that furthers the goals of the zoning and the Plan DSM is always going to be looked on in a positive way.
What's the requirement under the MPC and overlay for number of stories or height?
Well, it seeks to have 2 to 4, no higher than 4.
I'm sorry, the one they're under, not today's. Sorry.
The MPC would actually have a design guideline. So if you go to the I'm just looking at it here. Which section? I used to remember these very well. I know.
I see it on your page 6, I think.
Yep.
Maybe.
Heights are, number of stories is under G, 8G.
Okay.
Residential is max 4, all other uses a max of 2. So again, it doesn't mandate that it be up above 1.
Okay.
But it seeks to have between 2 and 4 stories.
Got it.
And any other questions?
Okay, so are we ready for the applicant?
Yeah, I know their designer is here. So.
All right, you can step forward.
Trust those guys.
Good evening. My name is Bart Turk. I am with Civil Engineering Consultants at 2486th Street, Unit 12, Des Moines. I am representing Mr. Todd Malang on this project. I was just asked by a person I was sitting by here. She is a representative of the Homeowners Association, and she has asked to speak prior to because she needs to attend another engagement. So I would like to ask her to come to the podium and go ahead and speak.
Okay, my only concern about that is, is she reacting to what you're going to discuss, or maybe, what is the?
I won't take a lot of time here, so I will just proceed if that's...
Okay, yeah, let's do that, and then we'll have her come forward.
So here's a rendering of the site, proposed development. And we've been working on this project for quite some time now. Let me just get to the crux of the issue at hand. I guess this is Louis floor covering is the neighbor here. And there are existing parking easements along the westerly line of our property for the benefit of Louis. And these have been in place for quite some time. Essentially, Louis has a parking easement here, and Louis has a right-of-way easement up here, a 20 by 20 right-of-way easement. And currently, it's my understanding that Louis comes in here and they pull a big old truck, trailer, semi-trailer in here, and they back up and unload. Well, that's fine and dandy, but they don't have an easement to do that. So I guess Scott has been working with Louis, trying to accommodate them and to come to an agreement on the proposed development. So we are honoring the parking easement and the 20 by 20 right-of-way easement for Louis. And we've been trying to work with them in procuring cross-access easements between the two properties. Although Louis is not willing to grant an easement on his property, but we would be willing to grant easement to Louis floor covering. Along with that, we are complying with all of the NPC planning guidelines, and we propose to comply with the 12 staff recommendations. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Also, Todd is unable to attend the meeting today, but Mr. Tyler Dingle, who represents Mr. Malang, is here this evening to perhaps answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
So how would you comply with number 12?
Well, what we would end up doing, number 12, we would just end up providing some sort of an island in here, perhaps, in the access to prevent this access of vehicles. And we would propose to Louis that if we could get along, maybe what we end up doing is changing this, instead of this being just one-way parking at an angle as it is currently today, it would be, we were proposed this to be 90-degree parking, and then Louis could drive his vehicle in here and back up in this manner to his dock. That's what I would propose, and I think we've presented that to Louis, but they're not in favor of that because it encumbers their lot while their vehicle is parked here, as opposed to encumbering this development as their vehicle is parked in this manner.
So even if staff wasn't requesting number 12, would you and your owner want to limit this anyway, or not? You'd leave it the way it is?
I think, could you restate that, please?
Even if staff or the board remove number 12, would it still be your and your owner's intent to enforce an edge there where Louis couldn't go across it, or would it be your intent to leave it open and everybody could do what they need to do?
I think we would. I would think that we would end up limiting the access and closing it.
Okay.
Hi, you mentioned me earlier. I'm Tyler Dingle, 2712 Northwest 166 Court in Clive. I'm representing the ownership group as well. Greg, to your question there, the number 12 essentially states is if we cannot get in an agreement on a cross-access easement agreement, then to provide that barrier. Ownership's preference on this, essentially, if you look at this dashed line, is where that easement sits today. Ownership would actually move that easement further onto our property, onto 2701 Ingersoll, to provide them that 90-degree parking to give two-way traffic on this street. So we further that easement. Would also provide them the ability to access the site here, make that turn, and then back into this dock area. The third thing that this would do would be to eliminate a third. There's currently an access point here, and access point there. This plan eliminates that third access point, which was recommended by staff. As you mentioned, if we cannot get that cross-access agreement, which we feel is in favor of all parties, then we would just create that island. Our traffic could still come in, park, and vacate or exit, through that same entrance, egress point.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, I guess if that concludes your presentation, if the individual would like to come forward now, please do.
Thank you.
That makes 3. Yeah, that should go. I always say 3.
complaint.
I know.
I'd like to first, my name is Lila Dozier. I live in Woodland Heights at 741 27th. I am not here representing the neighborhood, and I'm not speaking for the neighborhood. We tried to get, Ted, we were going to meet, but our schedules wouldn't jive, so we have not met with the developer. But to answer your statement, people that live in the area are very happy. And any kind of, this is just how people talk, but anything would be 1,000% better. but I can say it because I'm just a neighborhood person. But I'm mostly here just for information. And maybe Ted Milling is not familiar with some of the problems. You saw that there's 22 homes on Linden to the north. You saw the fence. I don't know what Eric is referring to as far as landscaping. I assume that he's talking about landscaping in front of the fence towards Ingersoll because there's not really enough room to do plantings on Linden. I don't know if you can tell, but the street, Linden, where the cars are parked, is 22 feet wide. It's a historic district. Every single one of those 22 homes is in the Ingersoll Place Historic District, and all of them are early 1900s craftsman prairie bungalows. So we have a range of from 2,000 feet down to 600 square feet. And look, so there's what you call middle housing. There's only one rental property. That is the third fence that has gone up facing Linden. It has been rammed, turned under, used and abused. And of course, I'm afraid, I don't know how much Ted knows, but when the staff recommendation says to, keep the fence in repair and repair the fence, I want him to understand that from my 40 years of living there, he better budget for costs of new fence. Also, there's another question that's come up from the neighbors, and we do not understand the little niche on that side of the property. Right now, the fence just stops there, and then there's 3 boulders between the back of where people park to get to the yacht club and Big Tomato. And it's our experience that they kind of go through the boulders or through the fence, or so we don't understand that fence configuration at the northeast part of the plat. It'd be nice if they could do the fence would be an L shape and instead of just 3 big boulders. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? All right. Actually, this is the time then that Mr. Dirk, or if you'd like to come back and respond.
I have no further comments.
Okay, that's your prerogative. Thank you. Eric, did you have something to add?
I don't have anything. In terms of the they would have the option of pulling the fence into the property if they wanted the plant material to be on the outside. I think that's really up to them. I think we still want to see overstreet plant material. If you looked at that drawing, I guess I don't have Bart's drawing, but it would be not unlike having street trees on the edge of, on the edge of a residential street. Whether those are on the commercial side of the fence or the other side, it doesn't really matter to staff. I think the plant material, if the fence is having to be replaced periodically due to damage, they may want the fence there to protect their landscaping. But from our perspective, if they want to put the fence line right in here against the parking, that's up to them. Most of the time, I think they want that area for pushing snow and having a little bit of space between the parking and the fence, but that's up to them.
Okay. So I guess at this time I'll close the public hearing. And commission, what is your pleasure?
I'll move staff.
All right. So the motion is to move staff, which their recommendation is approval of the request, subject to 12 conditions. Did I already read these? Have I read these into the, do I need to read these into the record, all 12? Okay. So, items 1 through 12, staff recommendation. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you. So this brings us then to item number 10 tonight, our final public hearing of the evening. Thank you everyone for public and commission for being patient. And item number 10 is the request from Lucky Gal for property located at 3104 Southwest 9th Street to determine whether the requested rezoning is in conformance with Plan Des Moines and to rezone the property from RX1 Mixed-Use District to MX1 Mixed-Use District to allow use of the building for an amusement arcade.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, you took this item up last fall, made a recommendation for a number of conditions under the previous zoning. The concern at that time was that when the new ordinance was adopted, those conditions would get wiped out essentially by the new adoption and the repeal of the old code. So the concern in this case led them to withdraw their request. There was also a little confusion about the possibility of sales of liquor, wine, or beer on the premise, which they've withdrawn any notion of that. That's not under consideration at this point. However, the zoning that we did adopt, the RX1 zoning for that area on these properties, is not something that would allow what they're calling an arcade. Under our new code, it's defined as sports and recreation, private participant, indoor, if that's a mouthful. But that would cover things like bowling alleys, billiard halls, arcades, basically things that people do to recreate indoors, not for public schools or universities, that type of thing. So in this case, they're looking to use a half of their building. I'm going to give you a couple of site photos. So both of these buildings would be under their control. They're already allowed they're already working to get up and running with tattoo parlor business, which is allowed in the RX1, and they're working through those requirements for that occupancy. For the other half to be the arcade, they would need to have the zoning, and then it would still have to be then reviewed, I think, for the assembly function under the building code, but they're probably already working through things right now to be able to have that ready to go if they're allowed to have that use. So I won't get too much further into that. The other thing I should point out is this does not include anything to the west with regard to the parking. I understand some issues were raised in the previous review of this that had to do with other activities that had happened with these buildings and disturbances that occurred in the parking area against the residential neighborhood to the west. They will have a compliant site plan for this, for their parking that they're required to have at this point. I believe they have easement with the church. The other thing I should point out is if they did have alcohol sales, had gone for that, they would have had a bigger hurdle to get the separation variance from the church. So that, I guess that's another thing to kind of point out, that had it ever gone that direction, that would have been a fairly significant thing they would have had to deal with. In this case, staff is recommending approval. We really kind of look back at the same conditions that were being recommended previously to help safeguard the neighborhood. So from that standpoint, we do find that the rezoning would be in conformance with the future land use, which is community mixed use. And then we would recommend approval to a limited MX1. Again, we're not getting really into much of the design element of it, but we want to really just restrict it to the uses in RX1 that would already be allowed, and then add the allowance for the sports and recreation private participant indoor use as a sole use from the MX1 district. And then on top of that, just to make it very clear that any sale or service of alcoholic liquor, wine, and or beer on the premise shall be prohibited. So even though the zoning wouldn't allow it, this is just kind of I think Glenna calls it belt and suspenders. So then there's a provision here that should the rezoning be denied, the applicant would have up to 1 year following the denial to seek a use variance. So if you denied, or the city council denied this on your recommendation, they would have standing to go to the zoning board of adjustment to seek a use variance for this.
Okay, questions, Larry?
Do you know if staff's I'm sorry, not staff, do you know if the applicant's in agreement with these, or do you not know?
I believe so. They were behind it the last time around. I'll let them speak to that, though.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Eric? Okay, then we are ready for the applicant.
Oh, I should show you I passed around the cards, and I do want to show the consent map here for you. So we did have some opposition, 4.81%. The church property is the big green property, and then we had some properties up here that were in favor as well.
All right, someone representing the applicant would like to step forward, or several.
You have our attention.
Okay, do I have everyone's attention? All right, good. Well, my name is Michelle Prusner. This is my husband, Chris Prusner. We represent the property listed at 3104 Southwest 9th Street. As Eric said, we were here last fall, so I'll just kind of try to go through some of the things quickly and to leave time for others to speak. As we mentioned last time, we were both raised from the South Side, both graduates of Lincoln High School. We currently own and operate 3 Lucky Gal tattoo locations, one across the street from the current proposed location, as well as one on the east side of Des Moines and Ankeny. Kind of looking at what we would like to do. As Eric mentioned, we would like to take the property located at 3104 Southwest 9th Street from what is currently an RX1 neighborhood residential to an MX1 with the mixed use for the arcade. Our goal is to provide really a family fun, safe environment for families to come and spend time. We're looking to renovate the existing building. Eric kind of showed you some current pictures. It's ran down. It needs some painting and some interior and exterior things done. We want to attract new patrons to the area, as well as potential for the third location that he pointed out there, the one that is in the blue color, doing something that also would complement the other stores and allow for something like a candy shop or something of that nature. We're recommending doing a lot of proposed renovations. Exterior, we're going to fix all the exterior building issues. There's some concrete that is come out from the building. We're going to do all new exterior paint, as well as looking at a new front to the building to have some curb appeal. We're renovating the outdoor parking space according to the zoning pieces that we need to do. Extensive cleanup, which we've already started to do in the green space initiatives. And we will have increased outside lighting and a lot of security improvements that aren't currently there today. Kind of on the next page just shows what we're looking to do as far as proposed improvements. As far as internal improvements, the building needed to be completely renovated. We have started to do that as far as all new plumbing, all new electrical up to codes. We've pretty much kind of stripped it down to the bare bones and we're completely rebuilding it to be a brand new building. Obviously got your ADA compliant bathrooms, new walls, looking at major insulation to have some of the noise issues and things. Some of the initial neighborhood feedback concerns were potential late hours, parking lot issues, consumption of alcohol, and noise issues. We feel like we've tried to do a really good job to speak with the neighbors, hold meetings, talk with our associations that are around the area to really try to put some of those concerns at rest. We are looking at very reasonable hours, not looking to be open very late on the weekends as well as during the weekdays. I talked about the increased exterior security and lighting. We're not, again, reiterating, we're not serving alcohol in the premise, nor are we looking to go towards that. We also originally had talked about an outside patio off the back. We are not doing that. That will just be your typical fire escape that's required. And then I talked about the new walls, and we're doing a lot for noise control so that won't be an issue. Just to kind of, since our last meeting, we have received over 1,000 signatures on our online petition in favor of the arcade. 300 of those, in addition, have been written. We have met with the church next door. They're very in support of the business and working in conjunction to keep noise down, parking lot issues. We feel like we have overwhelming local business and neighborhood support. We've had a lot of calls and things supporting it, as well as we've met with the Grays Lake Neighborhood Association, and they are in favor of the business as well.
Thank you.
I think you do.
Okay. All right.
You're the silent partner, I think.
Yeah, I guess. I took over.
I draw pictures, so she's the smart one.
Thank you.
Any questions for us?
All right, seeing none.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor? Please step forward and state your name and address. Yes, I saw, but I saw some other people raise their hand. In favor? Yeah, please step forward. Uh-oh.
That's not new.
My name is Susan Lee. I live at 819 Pleasant View Drive. I currently live behind the existing Lucky Gal.
Are you on the map here? This
Pardon?
map down here. See this map?
Oh, right here.
Great, thank you.
So the current Lucky, so you live over here? Okay.
Because the church is...
Behind their existing
Church is here,
location.
right? Yeah.
Okay.
The current one is here. I live right here. And I lived there before they moved there. I have found them to be very good neighbors. There was one night when there was an issue of noise, and it wasn't because of the tattoo parlor. It was underage kids in the parking lot, which they handled very quickly and efficiently. I wouldn't hesitate. I'm a single gal, elderly person. I have had a a gentleman that lived in my home that had a health issue, and guys from Lucky Gal came over and helped and called me at work to alert me of the issue. So I wouldn't hesitate to go over there and ask for help. I told my son of their plan to put the arcade in. He lives in Polk City, and he thought that was fantastic, a great thing for the South Side neighborhood. It gives the kids a place to go. And they have done a fantastic job of keeping up the current property. They've done a lot of improvements, inside, outside, to make it look better. And I'm looking forward to see the improvements that they're going to do on this one.
Thank you so much for coming. Is there anyone else that would step forward?
Madam Chair and members of the commission, my name is Marlene Anderson, and I have resided at 3320 Southwest 12th Street for the past 32 years, which is 5 blocks south and west of this location. Prior to that, I lived for 5 years at 509 Southwest Broad, which is 5 blocks north and east of this location. So I am what you might call an embedded resident of this area. And in addition to that, I served as one of the volunteer citizens who developed the Grays Lake Neighborhood Association Neighborhood Revitalization Plan in 2012 and 13. To that point, I would like to, I went to my records prior to coming tonight from that plan development, and I want to point out that among the priority areas that were developed for the neighborhood by our committee, there were 6 priority areas, and one of those was land use and zoning. The 3 bullet points underneath that header, one of them included enhance the Southwest 9th Street corridor. And then also we held a public meeting in the neighborhood at which 40 people were in attendance, and that was for the purpose of asking the priorities of the neighborhood for what we had developed for the various points of action. And the 3 points of action included improve the appearance of residential properties, install new sidewalks, which gladly is being done by the city throughout our neighborhood now, and enhance the Southwest 9th corridor. So you see our action plan for the neighborhood certainly addressed developments and improvements such as this. I'm a grandmother. I'm not, some of you might say, why is she up here speaking to an arcade? But I have 3 grandchildren, no less than 1 is at my home every day. Although they live in Norwalk, I pick them up from school, and they are elementary and preschool children. And I can't wait for this arcade to be approved and for it to open. I take my children to we have memberships at the Science Center, the zoo, the Botanical Center. I take them to every city park. I worked for the city of Des Moines for 20 years for Parks and Recreation, and certainly I am very much aware of the city's priorities in developing recreational opportunities. Arcades are one of the newest trends, so to speak, in recreational activities. Unfortunately, there are none on the south side of Des Moines at this point, and this will be the first. So I think that this will be a facility that would help draw people to the Southwest 9th corridor and be a very positive improvement. In addition, of course, we've got the Casey's being considered only a block away from this. So we've got some really good things happening right now, and I would see that this would be a continuation of that. I do also want to speak to the Lucky Gal. I have been very impressed. It was opened, I think, in 2010, and I've been extremely impressed by how they improved that property and how they have maintained it since. I've seen no negative impacts from that. I'm not a customer of theirs, will not likely ever be one of theirs, but I probably will be for the arcade. I think those are the points that I would like to make in particular. If any of you have a question of me, I'd be happy to ask those.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else in favor of the, yes, please step forward, sir.
Jason Shreve, owner of JCD and Hobby on 3315 Southeast 14th Street. Big founder of this company. I've been there for 15 years. We've been on the south side. We've got 3 locations. We're looking to partner with Lucky Gal in this arcade aspect to create a family-friendly environment. Our track record over the last 15 years has proven nothing but a safe environment for people to come, hang out, and enjoy. We feel that the south side deserves and needs something like this just to keep it more where people want to come and enjoy. 2 weeks we put up our signatures for this to get people to come in, just all south side. We didn't put it at our other locations. We had over 400 people in 2 weeks sign that they would love to have this place. All the customers, everybody that comes into my place, we have a pretty good revenue that comes through there. We would love to invest in this company and be a part of it. So just want to give JCD and Hobbies our full support. So.
And did you wish to enter your petitions into the record?
Absolutely. So, yep. And like I said, this was 2 weeks. I know if we would have ran this for 2 months, we would have probably generated at least 2,000 or 3,000. There's 400 in less than 2 weeks.
So that's in addition to the 1,000?
Yeah, this has nothing to do with the online. This was in person. These are mostly residents on the south side. That's why we wanted to keep it on the south side. If we put it at all our locations, we probably would have gathered even more signatures. So.
Any questions?
If you want to see them, I'll pass them around.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Does that conclude your remarks?
Yeah, that concludes my
Okay.
remarks. Like I said, we just wanted to let you know that we're on board with this. We're going to partner with this. This is something that we want to be a part of. So
Great. Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor? All right, at this time, concerns or?
My name is Ruth Canny. I live at 910 Boulder Avenue, which is right across the street from the church. I'm the first house right here. So this is going to affect me. And the neighbors, the other people in the neighborhood appointed me to come and speak tonight. So I have just kind of statements. Chris has stated there'll be no liquor served. That's been addressed. My problem, my issue is, can he at any time in the future come back and say, oh, by the way, we've changed our mind. We want to serve liquor, possible or not? And if he were able to do that, is there a way we as the neighborhood would be able to block it? He stated possible spillover parking into the church lot would be out of his control. He could only control what his section is. And my fear is there are going to be cars not only for the tattoo parlor, but for the arcade. And I don't know how he's going to contain that. Whether he's going to have a security guard there at all times or what. But it's an issue of being a nuisance if people are going to be there and parking wherever they want. There is no barrier or separation between the church lot and the arcade where it's going to be. And there are a lot of people who walk across that parking lot. And I have concerns about them walking through there and being, run over by a car. Probably not, but that's in the back of my mind. Chris stated he'd put up signs regarding parking only for the arcade and or Lucky Gal. And I want to know if he's willing to stand and enforce those. Just because you put up a sign that says you cannot park here unless you're going into those stores, I don't know how many people pay attention to those. I've seen people pull into handicap parking spots at Hy-Vee and get out and blithely walk up to the store. I want to wring their necks. There are concerns about the people loitering in both the front and the back. There's probably not going to be any smoking allowed inside, so they're going to be smoking outdoors. That again is going to affect us as the people around who don't smoke, don't like smokers, it's a concern. There's a transitional home just up the street on Park Avenue, and these are kids who are troubled, and I'm afraid that they're going to be tempted by this arcade. That may be stretching it, but that's my feeling. The other thing I was going to say, the loitering thing, there are homes in our neighborhood just on the block I live on and across the street that have both children and or pets, and we don't know who these people are that are going to be coming to this, whether they're going to wander into our yards, into other people's yards, whether we're going to be in a safe situation. I would like to know if Chris is going to be at this place at all times, if he's got 3 other Lucky Gal, or 2 other Lucky Gal tattoos parlor. I want to know who's going to be in charge of maintaining and watching over the area. The other one, we heard that he was going to be adding a deck on the back. That's been negated. I would like to know if this is okayed by the board, if you could put a probationary period on his, like a 6-month or a year, and make sure he is doing right by the neighborhood. That's all I have. Oh, I do have, when we came before the board previously, we had, it was following homes object to the zoning change of Lucky Gal tattoo at 3104 Southwest 9th. Do you want to see that?
We can enter that also to the record.
Was that for the current application?
It's the same one. And I have copies if anybody wants to read what I put on. Any questions?
That could go to Eric.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, so then at this time, I'm not sure, are you still going to be silent, Chris, or do you want to come and respond, or Michelle? Okay.
You want me to?
All right. I'll make this pretty quick as far as just addressing all the different things that have come into play. I think that that the neighborhood that is against the alcohol, I think that kind of nips it in the bud that we aren't pursuing this because it's an MX1. So there's no chance with the church, with the school. We're not going forward with that. This is a kids-friendly environment. We're looking at candy stores, not smoke shops or alcohol sales of any kind. So just put that away. We did add some. We are adding some security issues. Just like all my other shops, I do want to put cameras in that we can monitor at any time. We've never had any problems with any of the Lucky Gals in the past with loitering or any kind of problem type things. I'm guessing this will be the same thing here. We do have managers on hand at Lucky Gal, and there'll be managers at this location. Yes, I have 3. I do travel around, but I'm pretty excited to be at this one since I have a young son that will love the arcade. So.
I think it's also a little unrealistic to expect that someone who owns a business that they're going to be there all the time. And we have 3 locations. We spend a lot of time already at our locations, but that's why we hire a great management team, and that's why we've had such good success with our current location that we have, and we haven't had any complaints.
As far as the pedestrians go, I don't know how to address that, only that it'd be just like Hy-Vee or any kind of other parking. People walk, we follow the traffic laws like they should in a parking lot. Smoking, again, there's no smoking on the inside the building. I think that you have to be 25 feet away from the front door to smoke. But again, I'm looking at children. I don't think too many young kids will be smoking over there. I've had the Troubled Kids Youth Center come up before. I actually encourage the troubled kids to come in. I think it'd be a nice mentor situation where if we have troubled kids, come in. The guy that keeps spray painting the back of that shop, I'd love him to come in and maybe we can direct his energies into actually painting and selling and making money. I encourage it. So I think we can help kids realize that You know, maybe school isn't the best thing, but come in, you can learn a trade. You don't have to be college bound. There are other things that you can do. I can't read my other last thing that she mentioned.
Parking. Did you talk about
Parking. Oh, the church. We do have church support. Pastor John and Hazel are great people. I've talked with them numerous times. Their feelings on the parking is they're allowing people park there overnight. That's their parking, that's their choice. They allow a semi to park there, they allow other neighbors to park there. In fact, I think some of the people actually, it might be this guy that's actually in red, he parks multiple vehicles in the parking lot. I cannot control what happens in this green area. I can only work with them and say, they've allowed me to use overflow parking as long as it's not Sunday mornings when they have church. Fine by me. If they have a problem with somebody loitering there, I'm willing to take care of it, but I need them to tell me that that's okay. Otherwise, I'm going to have some other angry neighbors me telling them I towed their car when they have permission. That's beyond my scope. So hopefully it's busy enough to, have overflow parking, but you never know. But again, we'll try our best to ease the neighborhood. I think we just need to be there a couple years, even though we've been across the street for 10 years, just to keep it easy. This is going to be easy. We're not going to have a bunch of people in the back, gambling and smoking and whatever else they think is going to happen with this. Anything else you want to add? All right, I think I covered it all. Any questions? Awesome.
Maybe Eric, you can address what happens once the deal about the alcohol and if, rezone, what will happen?
So right now, it's not permitted in the current zoning. There's nothing preventing this owner or a future owner from coming back and asking to change something in the future about the zoning through the same process that you're reviewing it now. So there's no assurances of that. Everybody, anyone that owns the property has the right to come and request changes to zoning, but it would be considered through this same process.
So there'd be the same notification?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
The other question about a probationary period, this isn't a conditional type use where you can put time limitations or something like that. These are permitted uses in these zoning districts. The zoning will run with the land. If there's problems, they could petition the city council to change the zoning. That would be a fairly extreme situation, I would imagine. But that would be their only real sort of avenue to take if that was the case. There's not really anything built into the code that allows a temporary trial run here, so to speak. Any other questions for staff?
Doesn't appear to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to close the public hearing. What's your pleasure, Commission?
I'm staff.
Right? And the staff recommendation is that the commission find the proposed rezoning in conformance with Des Moines plan. That's part A. Part B is that the staff recommends approval of the request to rezone from limited MX1 subject to the following conditions. The use of property shall be limited to any use as permitted in the RX1 district or a sports and recreation private participant indoor use. And number 2, that any sale or service of alcoholic liquor, wine, and/or beer on the premise shall be prohibited.
Can I offer one comment before we vote? Probably going to tip my hand here, but I love what you guys do. Your passion, your vibrancy, just sort of your organic growth. This is what Des Moines needs, so I applaud what you do.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something to that. As I'm married to someone who loves going to the barcade, but he doesn't like the bar part of it. And so I'm really excited for kids to be able to go to these because we do have a lot of barcades, but unfortunately, because they're bars, children can't get in. And so it'll be nice to go to one that doesn't smell like booze.
For people, right? All right, so the staff recommendation, or the motion is to approve the staff recommendation, which I have just read. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. So that concludes our public hearing items for tonight. Under other items, we do have a commission nominating report. Mr. Page.
Yes, the nominating committee has met. The nominating committee consists of Jackie Easley, Emily Webb, and myself this year. The slate that we present to the commission tonight.
Well, excuse me. Can we, excuse me, we still are in session. so-
Could you move the discussions to the hallway so we can finish our business here? Thank you.
I know we're all excited about the arcade.
At least they're not screaming.
Right.
I agree.
Nominating committee report for the coming year, this year, 2020. The slate of officers: Chair Jan Freed, First Vice Chair Dory Briles, Second Vice Chair Emily Webb.
All right. So according to our bylaws, we'll vote this evening on the slate, correct? And this is effective our February meeting?
This would be, I'll put an item on the February 6th. It's supposed to be the second meeting of the calendar year.
Oh, okay.
So-
Okay.
So that slate will be up for consideration as an item on the next.
Okay. Oh, okay. I better. All right. Thank you very much, and thank you for serving, both of you, on the items. So is there any other business? Seeing none, meeting adjourned. Jack, I got something for you.